I don't know that people realize the amount of risk tolerance and or risk that's involved in growing a business and really the mindset you kind of have to have.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of risk tolerance and pain tolerance, quite frankly. It's said that there's a fine line between being bold and reckless. Like, I think fortune favors the bold. And of course, when you're reckless, you may completely drive off a cliff. And so you got to be mindful about which one you're being.
This is Right About Now with Ryan Alford, a Radcast Network production. We are the #1 business show on the planet with over 1 million downloads a month. Taking the BS out of business for over 6 years and over 400 episodes. You ready to start snapping necks and cashing checks? Turn it up. It starts right about now.
Hey guys, what's up? It's time for Right About Now. I'm Ryan Alford, your host. You know, we like to say if it's radical, we cover it. We're taking the BS out of business. That's why we got my friend, Nick Friedman. He is the founder of College Hunks Hauling Junk. What's up, Nick?
What's up, Ryan? How are you, man?
I'm good, brother. It's good to have you. You know, I'm ready to talk trash. I love talking trash.
Talking junk, talking trucks.
Junk, moving trash. Yo, you guys move everything. And we talked pre-episode. I've had personal experience. You know, I don't mind saying, you know, I called up the hunks. I'm a proud heterosexual male, but I don't mind calling the hunks because they are the best movers in Greenville, South Carolina. So I'll start you out with that one right there.
Hey, that was a softball, but yeah, we got 250 locations, and we like to say that hunks stands for honest, uniformed, nice, knowledgeable service. So, you know, it's not just about the physical attributes, but it really is about saving the time, energy, and hassle and headache of moving your stuff.
Yes, I would agree, and they do it. We've moved quite a bit in the Alford family. We have 4 boys and have moved around with a growing family.
Hey, future college hunks right there. Sign them up. They can be future franchise owners.
Yeah. Hey, I like your outfit the way it's run. And so it's funny, you know, my team like introduced me to you and I'm like, yeah, dude, I love those guys. And look, you know, I've used you firsthand. So I was like, I'm ready to give him the seal of approval, you know, before he even comes on the show. It's been our preferred movers. So I do appreciate that, but let's set the table for everyone a little bit, Nick. Talk about, you know, your background and what made you start a moving company.
Yeah. I don't think many kids grow up saying, I want to start a junk removal and moving business when I grow up. And I was not that kid either. I had been brought up to follow that more traditional career path. You get good grades, you get into college, you get a job, and you move up the corporate ladder. And I had an internship while I was in college. Was not fulfilling for me. This was right around the time the movie Office Space came out. I don't know if you remember that movie, the early 2000s, you know, TPS reports and work sucks. And I was like, okay, what am I signing up for here? So I got lucky the summer before my senior year of college. My best friend from high school, his mom had a beat up cargo van from her furniture store. And she said, you know, why don't you guys take the van? You can haul people's junk away. You can move their furniture. And then she paused for a second. She looked at us, kind of looked us up and down. She goes, you guys could be like college hunks who haul junk. And then we just laughed about it at first. And we were like, actually, that's kind of catchy. That's not what people really associate with your typical mover. So we made a flyer. We stuck it in mailboxes. The phone started ringing. And I realized, you know, that was the light bulb moment for me. People had a need for the service. And they thought the name was kind of a pattern interrupt. It set us apart from everybody else in this crowded industry. And ended up writing a business plan our senior year. Won an entrepreneurship competition, gave us a little more confidence, and then we graduated and decided to make it a full year-round venture. So today we've got over 250 franchises across the country. I describe ourselves as a 20-year overnight success. It's been a long journey to get to where we are, but it's been a fun journey nonetheless.
I love it. And, you know, we could say freshly minted International Franchise Entrepreneur of the Year, IFA. Hey, congratulations on that award.
Thank you. Yeah, we just got back from the IFA Annual Franchise Conference. Over 6,000 attendees from all the different franchise brands represented. And Omar and I received Entrepreneur of the Year. It was a really cool honor to receive that. I remember going to the IFA conferences when we first started franchising our business and being, you know, looking up to the Fred DeLucas of Subway and the Domino's Pizza founders and being like, wow, like, you know, those guys are are pretty big time. And to get that kind of recognition and accolade from sort of the official franchise industry association was a pretty cool testament, not just to me at Omar as entrepreneurs, but really it's the team folks we got, running the show, the franchise owners all around the country. And then of course the hunks, the guys doing the heavy lifting. That's the hardest part of the business right there.
I love it, Nick. Also author of Effortless Entrepreneur. It's kind of the path I wanted to go down first, Nick. It's funny you say the 20-year overnight success. I've been known to use that one myself. Only took 19 years of my 20 to get to that. The last year. And it's funny, isn't it, Nick? How you grow up, and like you mentioned with school, like what you think you're going to do, what you're going to do. You do always think that success is a destination, and I think, your journey and your growth, all that, you probably could tell us a million stories of why it's not a destination. It's that constant journey. Talk about that entrepreneurial journey for you and, when you guys really realized you had a franchise and just some of that growth path for you.
Yeah. So, I always start the story with when we first began, we had high aspirations. We wanted to be a national brand, but we were doing all the work ourselves. So we're driving the truck, answering the phone, hauling the furniture. And we went out and bought an 800 number because we wanted to look like a bigger company than we really were. We put it on the back of the truck, but it was still routed to our cell phone. And so I'd be driving the truck and people would call the 800 number to complain about the driving. And I'd be in the one in the driver's seat being like, we can't condone that driving in our company. We'll fire those guys when they get back to the office. Probably fired ourselves 3 or 4 times that first summer. And realized, very quickly that we couldn't scale a business if we were doing all the work ourselves. So one of our mentors recommended a book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber. And when we read that book, it almost felt like it was written about us, because really the message in that book is learning how to work on your business, not just in your business. Creating a framework and a structure and a long-term vision with systems to help make that vision a reality, and then sort of start on the long march, as you called it, the journey to make it a reality. And so in that book, they also talked about franchising and the idea of systemize your business in such a way that you could package it up and hand it to somebody else to run it as if it were a franchise, even if you're not thinking about franchising. But that sort of planted that word in the back of our head. And I'll be honest, we were probably a little naive when we jumped into franchising. We were like, hey, passive income, royalties, these all sounded like easier ways to make money. And it was farthest thing from the truth. It was a very steep learning curve, very slow, long march to scale once we got into franchising the business, but realized that we did have a brand and systems that could be a platform for other people to have business ownership themselves. So that was the path that we started down. And, like you said, it was grinding in the early days. It was, getting to a point where we could afford good people, making mistakes, hiring the wrong people. And then eventually things start to compound and the momentum is real. It starts to really fly. That flywheel effect starts to take shape. And all of a sudden, you're taking your hand off the wheel and you look around, you're like, wow, this is a real business and we're making the money that we always imagined we would. And then you're looking up and like, whoa, the mountain is much higher than we ever thought, even beyond where we are right now. So you just kind of keep climbing.
Talk to me, Nick. I think, there's books and things that talk about entrepreneurism or talk about franchising. And I think, one of the things that I've started to think about them a lot with what it takes to kind of go on these journeys and to do these things is something risk tolerance. Would you talk a little bit about that from your standpoint? Are both, you and Omar, how you guys managed risk, if you guys were always willing to throw it all in? I mean, because I think back to that, destination journey and all that, I don't know that people realize, the amount of risk tolerance and or risk that's involved in growing a business and really the mindset you kind of have to have.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of risk tolerance and pain tolerance, quite frankly. And so, it's said that there's a fine line between being bold and reckless. I think fortune favors the bold. And of course, when you're reckless, you may completely, drive off a cliff. And so you got to be mindful about which one you're being. When we first started, we were using motivation and sort of doubters as our motivation. Like we told people what we were doing, and a lot of people were skeptical. They were like, you're going to quit your job to do what? Haul junk, and it's going to be called College Hunks. Are you what kind of stupid name is that? Or the guys taking their shirts off to move furniture? Like, how do you decide who you're going to hire? Like, we heard all that nonsense.
I could hear it, man. I could hear it. I could hear it. I could hear you hearing it. And
yes, exactly.
You had to push through
I still hear it to this day sometimes when we tell people about what we do, and they, they're not familiar with the brand for some reason. They haven't seen our trucks, or it's in a market where we're just, kind of getting going. And so we use that as motivation. We always kind of looked at it as like, hey, we're not throwing away our degree to start a trash business. We're going to go and build something meaningful, impactful, and lasting. And, what's the worst case scenario? I always kind of, at least when we got started out, kind of had this worst case scenario in my mind. And, okay, go back and get a job somewhere, or go back and get, better schooling, or take the lessons that I learned and try to start a business and apply it to something else. But along the way, we just kept seeing more and more progress. And my dad gave me some advice recently because, I think once you get to a certain level of success, the risk tolerance, you sort of like have to be a little bit more guarded and weighted. So like when I was a lot younger, we started the business, no wife, no kids, no mortgage, no really responsibilities. Today we've got a, $300 million business, 4 kids, multiple homes, 5,000 employees around the country relying on this brand for their well-being. So the obligations and the responsibilities to all those stakeholders, including myself, are much greater. My dad gave me a piece of advice. He said, Nick, you've got a great life, a great family. Just don't F it up. Don't mess it up, And so I kind of let that ring around in my head a little bit before making, over aggressive bets on the business, or before, sort of over leveraging certain decisions. I think now that we can afford to be a little bit more risk mitigated, and we've got really good people in our team that are good at telling us no, myself and my business partner, because as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of this notion of wanting to ready, fire, then aim. And I think you got to do a lot of that out of the gates. But then once you start to reach certain levels of success and you've got a successful business and enterprise, you need folks that are going to weigh the risk reward. And there's still folks that'll tell us no, and sometimes we'll override them because we just have this gut instinct that this new marketing initiative is going to be worth it and worth testing. But I think the stakes get higher the bigger things get.
Yeah. Don't fuck it up, son. This is
so that's what he said. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to curse on your show, but I think he said that you guys are taking BS out of business. So I guess I should have known better. The other piece of advice my dad gave me, this was motivating, and I think there is some power in sort of setting expectations for that younger generation of what you are capable of. My dad, he said it jokingly, but he was like, Nick, you're smarter than I am. You're better educated than I was. If you don't do better than I did, you messed up. You effed up. You fucked up. And I'm like, you know what, Dad? I'm going to use that as motivation. I appreciate you sort of like giving me that gift to say that I am better prepared than you were, and that I can go make something of myself. So I didn't view that as a knock, but really as a sort of handing me the baton to say, go get it.
I love it. Hey, sage advice from the old man. My dad's my best friend and confidant to this day, so I can respect still getting that knowledge from him.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, isn't it funny, right? Like I've way surpassed anything that he ever did, professionally, but it is still really comforting to be able to have somebody like that in your inner circle that you can just go and talk to, and is going to give you just sort of unfettered opinion. It may not be wisdom because they may not have been down the path that we're on at this point, but it'll be at least be sort of a place from the point of love and trust.
I do want to point out for people listening, Nick's given a lot of dropping some major bombs already. I just want to say this, back to the bravery of the naming and that breaking through with College Hunks Hauling Junk. It rhymes and it's got alliteration and that's cool and all, but in an industry, that's not that sexy and not that cool typically, to really break through both with the green color choice, the orange, and the name. As a lifelong marketer, I want to commend you with the boldness and I would have, if I was in the room when you wrote it on the board, I don't care if you were 2019 or whatever, I would have gone ding, ding, ding. there's a winner, because that's going to break through and it's going to get attention and people talking, and your friends could screw off.
Right, Ryan, I got goosebumps as you were saying that, because like that really is sort of what I don't know if we just sort of innately saw that, but we were like, how do we stand out in a crowded landscape? And we were looking, actually, when we picked the colors, we knew the name was catchy. We knew the name was going to capture attention. When we picked the colors, we were looking at college sports teams, and we grew up in the DC area. So we actually first looked at black and red, University of Maryland, but actually my business partner went to University of Miami in Florida. And we thought, that's a small private university, but their athletic program is infamous. The U, it's a widely known brand. So we said, look, orange and green, it's bright, it's colorful, it stands out. Now we tell people the orange is our playful company culture and the green is our environmentally, friendly recycling practices, because not everybody likes the Miami Hurricanes. But but that was sort of the idea. And there was another book we read, which kind of hits your point on marketing, called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And he says, look, if you're driving down a country road and you see a field of cows that are all the same color, you've always, brown cows, you've seen them all before, you just keep driving. It's nothing unique or remarkable about it. But if there's a purple cow in that field, you're going to pull over, you're going to take pictures of it, put it on social media, tell your friends and neighbors about it. And then he goes on to say that the purple cow has to be the brand, the image, that's the sizzle, but it's also got to be the product or the service experience. That's the steak. So when we started the interview, you talked about you were a client, a customer of College Hunks Moving, and that you had a positive experience. So like the name or the colors might have been like, oh, that's a funny company, let's give them a shot. But then when you actually had us move you, that was the stake. It's like, okay, I'm going to use them again in the future, or recommend them to my friends and neighbors, or talk about them on my show. And so I think that's really like why people, I think, can relate to our story, is we didn't go try to invent TikTok or Snapchat or Facebook. We took a simple business, trucks and labor. We put a very intentional focus on a creative name, a creative image, and then a very intentional focus on the customer experience and the team member experience as well. And, I credit that to the compounding effect of our, like we said earlier, 20-year overnight success.
Yes. I like to say, you got a long road to haul if you're trying to be better, but if you're different, you'll win, baby. That's what that purple cow, purple horse, whatever it is.
And be different. I mean, we would walk into networking events, my business partner and I, 21, 22 years old, with bright orange and green polos or button-ups on. And, it might turn some people away or turn some people off, but we captured people's attention. We put in a marketing award application for the American Marketing Association, and we walked away with like 2 or 3 awards that first year. And this was against like actual branding and marketing agencies. We were just kind of running these campaigns ourselves. So we knew we had something, and that marketing was going to be the key and branding was going to be the key to sort of helping us separate ourselves over time.
I want to pause for 1 second, Nick. I want to come back to some, lessons and trials and tribulations and, where we're going with the franchise here. But I have to say, you've got to have, we talk about radical fun things here, Nick. You got to have some good stories. So you name your business College Hunks. You got to have a story or two of women or men or hell, who knows, people that call, like expecting a certain experience or something. There's got to be a story in there.
Well, look, so I don't want to hear any of those stories. If they're happening, I don't want to hear them because
that's early on.
Yes, I was going to say that's not the brand that we're putting out there. But there are probably some brand confusion or mistaken consumers out there that have, and certainly in those early days, opened the door in their bathrobe, men or women, said, "Oh, you guys are the College Hunks. Come on in. Let me show you around." And I'm like, listen, it ain't that kind of party. So
I'm sure you had to turn it quickly. I just assumed that somewhere along the way in those early days, people just being.
Yeah, and I will say, actually, what's funny, we were actually on the very first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And we actually weren't going to pitch College Hunks to go on that show. We were pitching a sister company that had popped into our head once. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes. The idea was like moving prep and organizing.
Yes. I like that too.
Yeah, well, the Sharks had the same reaction you just did. They were willing to invest, but they wanted equity in College Hunks. They didn't really think the Fox's idea was a great one. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't, because we would have probably had a lot more of those sort of guys in trench coats calling and being like, hey, I got to move again.
Oh, yeah.
And, in addition to that, the female is typically the household decision maker. So she doesn't want the Foxes around her husband. And, most of the Foxes don't want to pack boxes anyway. So we scrapped that idea. We left it on the shelf. It was good publicity, good experience going on Shark Tank. But the Hunks, yes, we've had those incidents where customers maybe get a little bit ambitious or confused about what they're going to get when we show up to the house, and we have to dispel that up front.
But either way, and I think you guys kind of, because I even, doing my research the first time I used you guys, you kind of got underneath it. And look, let's be honest, when somebody's going to be moving your, 5,000 or not 5,000, 500 pound, dresser or something, look, you need some muscle
That's
behind
right.
it. So,
yeah. A lot, back to the branding piece, like most of our branding besides the name Hunks isn't really, what I'll say like sexualized or about physical attributes. We got the guy with the logo sort of holding up the name. But most of what we talk about is, like I said, our brand promise acronym. We came up with that acronym, by the way, after we got tired of people asking us, are they all really hunks? We were like, you know what, we need a different answer for that. So now we come up with honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. And that has become our brand promise. We tell everybody that's what you can expect when you hire the Hunks: honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. And so the idea is like, you want guys who are strong, going to be able to do the job, get it done. So you can just sit back and relax and, drink lemonade while the work is taking place.
They are professional. I will say that. So that's all that matters. The Shark Tank, you brought it up. I was going to ask. It's been a while. Weren't y'all first season? It was like you guys were
Episode
early.
1, season 1. Yeah.
Wow.
So we went into this show not knowing what to expect. We got an offer from Robert Herjavec. He wanted 10% of the company for $250,000, which would have valued the business about $2.5 million, and we turned it down. We only had about 4 or 5 franchises at the time, so it probably was a fair offer. People always ask me, "Do you wish you had taken the deal?" And I'm like, heck no, because if I look at that, his business investment would be worth 100 times that, maybe more today. So we'd be paying him $25 million plus on a $250,000 investment. I'd rather keep that $25 million to myself. And the other thing is, we didn't know that those sharks at the time were going to turn into television celebrities. We had no clue that the show was going to be on for 15 seasons, and all these guys were going to become basically TV personalities. So glad that we did what we did, and the show reruns every now and again on like CNBC or on demand. So it's sort of the gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly. That's the thing, like with TV and stuff, like just going on. I think people figured it out now, but you guys were smart and early with figuring out like whether you take the deal or not. Maybe it's, if you have a good enough idea, it's probably better that you don't take the deal.
Right.
But you get the repeated airplay of reach and frequency of television.
Well, that was something, Ryan, I think we also figured out intuitively early on in our business is like, whatever we got to do to get the name out there, let's do it. People might call you shameless promoters or publicity whores or whatever they want to call you, but, they're not out promoting something that they're doing. And if you're not going to promote yourself, who's going to do it? You got to be the one that's promoting out of the gates. And eventually other people are going to experience what you're promoting, and they're going to become promoters for you as well. So, after Shark Tank, we went on a dating show, for God's sakes, called Millionaire Matchmaker. And my business partner picked up his date in a College Hunks truck to go clean out a garage. Horrible date idea. Amazing branding opportunity. And that show just got picked up on Netflix, reruns from like almost 15 years ago. So, a whole new generation of people are watching that on demand that never had heard of College Hunks, and they're seeing this stupid date, fall apart. But there's the College Hunks truck on Netflix. And so, we've done Undercover Boss, where Omar and I went in disguise and, took a risk of kind of exposing some of the warts in some of our franchise locations, that show, shines a magnifying glass on. So I think taking risk, like you asked earlier, being willing to put yourself out there and step out of your comfort zone to promote what it is that you're doing, especially in the early days. You got to be willing to do that and not be bashful about what other people are going to say or how they're going to judge you and so forth.
Amen, brother. What's been the growth like? I'm sure there's been stages. I mean, being, as large as you are now and the ambitions you have. I mean, talk about, we've been dancing all around the marketing, but, and obviously once you get franchises, you get the name out there 250 more times with franchisees and stuff. But talk about, what has been the path of marketing and branding, holistically for your growth.
Yeah, I mean, marketing and branding, as you know, it's science and art. And I will say that Omar and I are a little bit more on the creative, visionary art side of things. Like I can picture, what happens if we get our company or brand on a TV show, or if we publish a book, or if we, park our vehicles in a really high traffic corner, all the eyeballs that produces. Like I can just sort of intuitively see that. That's the art side of it. The science side of it, which, one might argue is a little more boring, not as fun or sizzly. One might also argue is more important than the art form, or at least equally important. And that's the, understanding your consumer dynamics, understanding pay per click and search engine optimization, understanding lead conversion and lead capture and lead nurturing and, client follow-ups and all those sorts of things. So for those things that are a little bit more analytical and data driven, we just brought in experts because I'm not as, financially astute or sharp with, kind of analyzing the X's and O's. So we brought in, marketing ninjas and financial strategists, both in the early days, part-time, freelancers because we couldn't afford somebody full-time. And now today we've got really powerful and skilled folks that can, sort of dial up the levers. And so I think it's been that combination of us being really creative, ambitious visionaries to get the name out there. And, you talked about some of the examples, the TV show or the parketing, as we call it. I bought a gift certificate. It was like $1,000, but it was to have Omar throw out the first pitch at a Tampa Rays baseball game. And so he got to do that. And we all came in our branded T-shirts. There was a guy sitting next to us who was working for a different moving company up in Michigan. And he ended up buying one of our franchises. And he's our most successful franchisee in our system in terms of revenue per population. So he's just crushing it. I mean, he's netting over $1 million a year. And, so putting yourself out there, again, I can't stress enough how important that is. But then having some of the strategists, kind of in your inner circle to help dial in the tactical levers.
I love the throwing the baseball out. That's brilliant. I love the, like guerrilla marketing and like just different ideas like that get you. You just don't ever know. I mean, especially, you got how many 100 people there, 1,000 people there watching the game. And, it's on camera. So you get the video of it. You can make it live forever. Like I love those. That's
the stuff that's kind of fun for me, right? It's like people always ask, follow your passion. And I'm like, well, it's not like I was passionate about moving and junk removal, but I am kind of passionate about the creative process, about promoting, about getting the name out there and seeing it impact others, how, our franchise owners can kind of take those systems into their market and that produces financial success for them and their employees. Like that's the stuff that gets me excited and kind of gets my juices rolling. So I think that's also kind of key as you're thinking about like, what am I passionate about? Like maybe it may not be the specific business model itself, but it's the elements that go into building that business or building that brand that actually get you moving.
Oh man, don't get me on the passion patrol, baby. Following your passion is bullshit. Like you follow your passion when you make some money. What you're good at translates to success and
Let me
money.
tell you something. I was very passionate about basketball in middle school, high school, and college. And I can tell you, I barely scratched 6 feet. My vertical barely scratches probably 12 inches. And, for a white guy, my 3-pointer was not that pure. So if I had just continued following that passion, I'd probably be mopping the floor in a locker room right now.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. You can follow your passion, but if you want the definitive role or way to, high-end success. I mean, and look, everybody's vision's different. If like you just want to make it and you're happy with that, then certainly go do it, but it's, I don't know. There's a lot of dangerous advice given out there sometimes with people thinking.
I agree. Well, it's a cliche that gets sort of defaulted to, and there's layers to it that have to be really understood. Because if you just follow your passion, it's like, okay, I'm going to go do something I like.
Yeah, fun.
But, are you good at it? And do you love it? And can you get paid for it? And is that going to continue to drive you collectively?
Exactly. You got to exist at the very least,
That's right.
What's the goals, man? I mean, like, I'm sure you saw it out. If somebody would have told you, 20 years ago, like if you'd been sitting exactly, where you are now, oh shit, you'd take that, right? You'd sign that one, wouldn't you? but
Ryan, man, it's crazy. I've actually had a lot of reflection about this recently because, we've achieved like almost everything that I put on my vision board 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, my wife and I wrote out a vision board, and I'm looking at it, I'm like checking the boxes on like every single thing. So it's like, now what, right? Like you've achieved everything you set out to do. Like you don't just put your feet up on the, on the table and drink martinis the rest of your life. So like I used to think that was going to be what I would do, but I've seen Nick Saban interviews, and he won 7 national championships, and they asked him, how do you stay motivated year in, year out? And he said, complacency leads to bad decisions. Bad decisions lead to bad outcomes. And so then I reflected on my dad's advice, don't fuck it up. So, I actually have a blank palette right now that I can kind of think about, like, okay, these next 10 years of my life, I got 4 young kids. How do I want to weave them into, my day to day? I've got a business that's, doing over $250 million in revenue annually. How are we going to grow it to $1 billion and beyond? So I'm getting and it's exciting for me because for the first time, I'm able to do it out of a place of abundance as opposed to, I would say, a place of scarcity. Like everything up to this point was like, I want to have X, Y, and Z because I don't have X, Y, and Z. Now I feel like I've obtained and achieved X, Y, and Z. So now it's like, okay, how can we bring more to the table to be more fulfilling, more rewarding for everybody that's, part of this platform? So that's the exciting part for me. But yeah, if my 20-year-old self, my 30-year-old self would be very, very happy. When we first started the business, we were like, man, if we could just get it to 100 million in system-wide franchise revenue, wouldn't that be amazing? And we got there. And since we got there, we've 3x'd that number. We're doing 300 million in annual sales now. So now it's like, okay, how do we 3x this number, but do it from a place of abundance, not a place of scarcity, so that I'm not always feeling like there's an empty void that I've got to fill. Because that was what drove me in the early days was that scarcity feeling.
Yeah. It's funny, like what it takes to get to a certain point is not the same thing. You got to create these new challenges for yourselves and new ladders and new things because the motivations become different, right? And, just
very much. It's
like staying. And that's almost back to like, where we started, the bold versus reckless, like, and how you might get to that next ring is different than what got you there, but you still got to have that drive and passion. So I want to give you like a 2-parter there, like kind of respond to that, what it takes, from one to the next. And then, I would just think, because I'm sitting here doing the math, like when does it become, and I'm sure you're not going to give away your exit plans here on the show, but those things have to start to enter the brain or your mind on some level.
It does. It does. But, it's funny, like, we sold about 25% of the company to a private equity group about 3 years ago. So I got a really nice liquidity event out of that. And having that chunk and then talk to some other people who have actually sold their entire companies or the majority of their companies, the psychology is a little bit different when you don't have the income producing asset that's generating cash flow year in, year out. And so having experienced that sort of in a micro experience, my expectation or anticipation of wanting to go just get a big bucket and then, again, figure out what the hell I'm going to do with it has also shifted. It's like, okay, the asset that I have right now, the golden goose that's producing is this brand. And I'm coming out of this franchise conference that we just attended, I'm meeting all these other franchisors that have multi-brand platforms that they've started developing. And I'm like, well, why can't we become that once we start sort of maturing out our franchise owner success and selling out a territory for College Hunks franchises? Why can't we start bringing in other, whether it's home service franchises or other franchise concepts, utilizing our marketing, our cash, our financing, our call center, and all the different resources we provided to our College Hunks business, why can't we do that for other businesses as well? So whether that involves bringing in additional outside capital or not, that's...
I have a podcast scheduled at this time.
Jeff, my guy.
Are you guys almost done? What's up, Nick?
You're exactly what I was just thinking of, man. That's awesome.
I'm just waiting on you, bro. It seems like my whole career I've been following you.
Yeah, right. You're always like 2 or 3 steps ahead, brother. Yeah, man. For those of you guys who don't know, that's Jeff Duden. He's franchise guru, entrepreneur, success mentor, advisor, friend of mine, and very cool. Great surprise. I don't know if you had him ready in the wings the whole time.
I didn't know he knew you. He's here. He's a friend and he's on the Radcast Network. His show On the Home Front is part of our network, and he's a good buddy. And I did not know. That was not pre-arranged. I did not know that y'all do each other.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, Jeff's awesome. I used to attend conferences when I talk about, some of the franchise royalty that I would look up to. He's one that I'd just be taking vigorous notes from his sessions. Yeah,
he's awesome. No, that's awesome, man. It's funny. So what do you do for fun? Like what's an idea of fun for Nick?
Yeah.
Doesn't have the worries of yesteryear, can probably do just about anything you want. So like, where do you find happiness?
Yeah. So what's funny is I used to have a lot where I still struggle with what I call FOMO, fear of missing out. And so, I wouldn't want to miss the party, the trip, the conference, the meeting, the lunch, breakfast, lunch, or dinner with this person or that person. This year, my mantra has been focus over FOMO. So I'm trying to sort of scale back. I call it addition by subtraction. Like, what can I remove from my plate that's actually going to make things, more meaningful or impactful? And so, for fun, for me, I love spending time with my kids. I love spending time with my friends that are in my inner circle. I'm part of a group, Young Presidents Organization, my forum, which, again, Jeff Duden is we're very familiar with, is really fun for me to go spend time with. So, sporting events, travel, hanging out with my friends and family, like those are the simple things that are fun. The Vegas benders of yesteryear are sort of off in the distance of my rearview mirror because the hangovers with 4 young kids just don't bounce back like they used to.
Hey man, brother, I have 4 boys, and I have to choose my moments or not at all.
I used to get it. But I will say, when my friends would call me up and be like, "Hey, we're going to go on a bachelor party or a boys trip." Like, I used to get anxiety about missing those trips, but now I sometimes will get anxiety about going on them because I realize like all the stuff that's going to have to be working in behind the scenes while I'm gone, and when I get back, all the stuff that I'm going to have to deal with in recovery. So, I think again, addition by subtraction.
Do you got any fun projects or anything, with the brand, with content, anything that's kind of upcoming that you could talk about?
Nothing that's going to really, shake up the audience right now. Last year I did what I would call my fun side quest. I produced and acted in a movie. It was called Bezos: The Beginning. It's on, Amazon Prime and all the different, streaming on demand networks. It was the first movie ever made about Jeff Bezos. It's a biopic. And I played the role of Shel Caffin, who was the first employee that Bezos hired to come work on the garage programming. So it was a fun stretch of the comfort zone for me. It was sort of a bucket list item for me. Some people run marathons or climb mountains. That doesn't really appeal to me. I had done unscripted reality TV. This was the first opportunity for me to do a scripted movie. Great experience, but I'm not running out to do it again anytime soon. And then earlier this year, my business partner and I did a stand-up comedy show called the CEO Comedy Challenge, where we performed at the Tampa Improv. Each we performed a 10-minute set. It was pre-prepared, and we had a comedy coach. Again, stepping out of my comfort zone, doing something that, maybe a little bit outside of the box. But other than those 2 things that I would call side quests, just trying to lock in and stay focused. The housing market isn't booming right now, so our franchisees are maybe struggling to get leads and put jobs on the calendar. So we want to support them the best we can to make sure they can weather the storm, which I think is actually the best time to be in this sort of business because things aren't just raining and falling into your bucket, into your lap, which makes it makes you become a better business owner. When we first started franchising College Hunks, it was like the peak of the housing downturn of 2008, 2009. And had we not experienced that, I don't think we would to have exercised the resilience muscle or the grit muscle that we ultimately did.
Two more questions here, Nick, that kind of come to mind as we close out, finishing up here with Nick Friedman, founder of College Hunks Hauling Junk. Co-founder, excuse me. Nick, I think about, so along the lines of what you're just talking about, with business and leads and, this interplay of lead generation versus brand awareness. It's always a hot topic for me because I've been in the business for 22 years and, it was really all about brand and mass awareness for a lot of my early career working in wireless, the first iPhone, like a lot of big brand stuff. And then performance marketing came along and it was all about performance. But everybody kind of forgot you got to have a brand too, Talk to me about how you guys look at that interplay and do you or do you not? Is it just all data now? Like I can just go swoop up the leads or do we have to?
I think we are branding guys, obviously by nature. And so that we sort of naturally lean in that direction. And like I said, we've had to hire sort of the scientists on the sort of demand generation side of things. But we kind of think about marketing in what I call 4 buckets. It's get found. So that's, when people are searching for movers or searching for haulers, it's being able to be top of Google or top of Bing. Yeah. It's find them, which are things like, behavioral direct mail. People list their home for sale. They get a mailer or called. It's asking them, if they need movers. There's sort of the loyalty development, which are things like, remarketing and rebuilding relationships with your existing clients. And then there's the broader bucket that I call build the brand, which it's things like parking, putting the trucks out in visible locations, the little bandit signs, the guerrilla marketing stuff that, you don't have a direct ROI or response from necessarily, but maybe when they're searching for movers and your name pops up, the fact that they saw your truck in the community is going to resonate with them. Now they're going to click on your link over the competitor. So I think it's an integrated approach to me, and you'll have tactics in each of those buckets. But I don't think you can neglect branding for everything else. And that's why I think some of these, aggregator companies that, are have multiple companies on them, multiple brands within them. They sometimes struggle because they don't have a brand themselves. So they're spending so much money on, Super Bowl ads and mainstream marketing because they've got to drive traffic to their site for people to then, select a service platform through their site.
Yeah, you can't, familiarity breeds comfort, and so you could be at that top of the list on Google, but if they've never heard of you, then there's a pause, right? There's friction. Mm-hmm. And so when you build the brand and you have a standout brand with a name and the colors, it helps.
Absolutely.
Helps a lot.
Absolutely.
Finally, Nick, a lot of people listen, it's so hard, I find, in these interviews, like, to convey the struggle and the realness of what it takes to like build a business, we're talking about it at a high level. We could have a 4-hour discussion probably about every minutia of your journey. Like 4-day discussion, so it's like wanting to hit the high strokes, wanting to give value to people listening. But, for someone listening, like, is there something beyond like the points we've talked about that ultimately can help someone kind of carve out that path or push through from idea to execution? Any final wisdom you can share from your journey?
Yeah, everything we've talked about kind of fills the bucket of the journey, but I always say urgency of effort, patience for results. Like, you got to be urgent and somewhat manic about the effort that you put in every single day, and you try to be a magnet for others to want to put in that much urgency and effort as well. But you got to be patient because the results don't come overnight. And if you beat yourself up for the results day in, day out, you're going to beat yourself up, and your health is going to, suffer. you're going to make haphazard decisions trying to shortcut the success, which is ultimately going to backfire on you. And so I think having the urgency of effort, the patience for the results is sort of a good mantra to tuck in the back of your head along the entire path of the journey.
A lot of wisdom there, brother. I love that. You and I are like, I don't know if like some of these quotes I thought I came up with, like I'm joking, but like we're reading out like the same playbooks. Like you named some obscure ones that I'll say that no one's ever heard of. And I'm like, damn, my boy Nick's like, we're reading the same journals or we're on the same wavelength. I love it. Yeah. I love that last one. I don't know if that's yours or if that's from a book, but that one's great. Urgency for effort, patience for results.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you guys know Cameron Herold. He's kind of an entrepreneurial speaker, but he says he'll credit the quote the first 2 or 3 times he uses it in a speech, and after that, he just starts taking it as his own. Because I used to do that, and I've kind of forgotten who I've gotten some of these quotes from. Some of them are my own. Some of them I've said so many times, or I've modified them slightly. So you ink it, you own it. You just start saying it.
Hey, well, have those people founded College Hunks? Have they gone on Shark Tank? Have they done and built a $350 million business? I don't think so. Probably not. So it's all kudos to you, brother. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can everybody stay up with everything you're doing and the Hunks?
Yeah, so I've got a personal website, nickfriedman.com, Friedman. Also, all my social media handles is Nick Friedman and the number 1, Nick Friedman 1. Somebody had already beaten me to the at Nick Friedman. And then, of course, College Hunks is pretty simple. collegehunks.com or collegehunkshaulingJunk.com if you want to type out the whole name, takes you to the same place. You can learn about franchising. You can learn about moving and hauling services if you need one of those, and see if we're in your market.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate having you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Hey, that was Nick Friedman, and he was right about now. This is Ryan Alford. You know where to find me, at Ryan Alford on all the social media platforms. Go follow me on TikTok. I'm blowing up over there. We'll see you next time on Right About Now.
To listen or watch full episodes of Right About Now on the web, go to ryanisright.com or follow at Ryan Alford on all social media platforms.